Are we wearing the exact same thing?
Really?
Yes.
Oh,
I'll go change.
thanks, Tilsey.
Tom Brady, look at this, taking part in a 2-hour throwing session Tuesday at a school in Tampa, marking the first time he's been seen in a Bucs helmet. 8 teammates reportedly joined him, including Mike Evans, O.J. Howard, and Blaine Gabbert. This comes a month after Brady was asked to leave a city park by a Tampa Parks and Recreation staffer. Tampa Bay Times, every phone has a video along with your camera taking abilities. I don't know why anyone didn't take video of Tom Brady throwing, but anyway. Welcome to SportsCenter with Jay and Dan, brought to you by McDonald's. I almost had to miss this show because while getting ready and showered for this broadcast, I got a bunch of moisturizer in my eyeball. So if I'm tearing up a little, that's why. Whoa.
Excuse me. Sorry, Dan. Your story about your moist eyeball made me sneeze. I apologize. And the other thing that surprised me is that you shower before you do these shows?
Oh, yeah, because the hair gets so long, I have to push it down so it doesn't look so big because no haircuts.
I'd like to see your hair pushed down a little bit. I think it would look very Gordon Gekko in Wall Street, but that's for another time. Dan, the NHL really wants to return. So many questions, though, including what would be the potential impact of the U.S.-Canadian border remaining closed another month? And what about that NHL draft? What's going on with that? Let's ask the insiders.
There are your insiders, Bob, Driggs, and Pierre. And gentlemen, it seems this 24-team tournament whittled down to a 16-team playoff is the favored format right now. But Driggs, how concerned is the NHL about fairness, that one of these teams at the bottom that just gets in may be able to pull off an upset in a short series?
Well, it's an important issue. There's no doubt about that. The NHL knows this. So does the NHL Players Association. Perhaps more contentious if you're an NHL general manager and you're a general manager on a better club. You wouldn't want equal footing across the 24-team format. So part of what has been a daunting task with the Return to Play Committee, the PA, and the NHL is trying to determine appropriate value from where a club was sitting in regular season play and then transferring that into the field of 24. You know, if you look at what some of the matchups might look like, Montreal, a non-playoff team by regular season standards, faces the Pittsburgh Penguins, a pretty good team in the Eastern Conference. Should they be at an equal position starting the play-in of the 24-team format, or Edmonton or Chicago for that matter? So, James, I'll tell you, there's been a ton of discussion on this. As I said, an important issue, and before they sign off on a return-to-play scenario, this is going to have to be resolved.
Well, in the meantime, news on Tuesday from the Canadian government that the U.S.-Canada border will remain closed for non-essential travel right to June 21st. And of course, immediately in our world, you think about how that impacts pro sports and in particular the National Hockey League and its efforts to reopen at some point. What we're told, without any real specifics, is that neither the NHL or the NHLPA feels that that will impact what they are working on right now in terms of return to play protocol. And there's a couple reasons for that. One is that, of course, they don't think they're going to play actual games till mid to late July at the earliest. And number two, phase two, which is small group workouts, is voluntary. The players don't have to come back for phase two. Obviously, a lot of them are going to want to so they can finally skate, but it is voluntary.
Bob, you reported last week that this idea of the early June draft before play resumes is not dead, but close to dead. As we move on here, why haven't they just announced that it's not happening?
Well, James, if you came looking for clarity in terms of when the draft is going to be, you came to the wrong place. I talked to a number of NHL general managers this morning, and they said, no clue. We've not heard anything about the draft. We don't know anything about the draft. Your guess is as good as ours. And right now, there's still a very strong sense that it's less likely to happen prior to the resumption of the 2019-20 season. But it's not completely kiboshed just yet. And it seems to me that the entire focus for the NHL and the NHLPA is on these return to play protocols, setting out the format for what the return to play would look like, and then figuring out whether to slot the draft before or after. The decision doesn't need to be made now. It won't be made anytime soon.
Pierre, the players' final paycheck issued over a month ago, but they still haven't decided exactly what they want to do with it?
That's right, James. You may remember that it was due on April 15th, and they decided at the time to defer and to continue to debate right into May 15th what to do with that final paycheck. Well, they voted over the weekend to further defer it again to the end of May, and we're talking about $120 million at play here overall for all the paychecks. And there is no good answer. I mean, either the players don't collect this paycheck and decide to start paying on some of the escrow payments that they're going to owe big time over the next year or two. But there's also a faction that says, hey, take the cash now and figure out the rest later. You can see both sides of this argument, but certainly I think part of this is waiting to see, is there clarity on return to play? Is there maybe some hints on what a new CBA will look like before the players make a decision on the last paycheck?
Of course, the bigger issue, how big will the paychecks be next season? Insider trading.
As the NHL examines the possibility of playing games in hub cities, Alberta Premier Jason Kenney says the province is working closely with the Edmonton Oilers to pitch Edmonton's case to the league.
I think we've got a tremendous pitch to make. First of all, in terms of the Alberta being a star performer in North America on the public health response to the pandemic, particularly here in Edmonton, where the number of active cases, I think we're down to 50 active cases in this population of in Greater Edmonton of 1.2 million people, together with the highest per capita testing in North America, if not the world. I think we are the safest place they could find in the continent to come and in a very thoughtful and careful way finish off the season with the playoffs. We've got one of the best facilities, I would say the best facility, with the brand new Rogers Place Arena. It is attached to a brand new hotel. All of the services are right there, can be safely integrated in a protected zone that would keep the players and staff insulated. And so we've got a very, very strong pitch, I think, to make. And I look forward to speaking again with Commissioner Bettman, hopefully later this week, about all of that.
So there you go. And Dan, speaking of that hotel that's attached to the brand new arena in Edmonton, we've stayed at that hotel, Dan. We can vouch for it's a beautiful hotel. We did not stay together. We always request separate rooms. Okay, Dan. We move on to the all-time Team Canada women's team, which I'm sure will be the subject of as much debate as all of our other all-time teams.
Yeah, the one thing that I saw when I got a sneak peek at it, well, now, I guess it wasn't a sneak peek because I saw it online with everyone else. They aren't sending me like, hey, Toolsy, what do you think of this lineup? I saw it along with everyone else. One word comes to mind. This lineup is stacked, just like the panel that discusses it with Gino.
Joined by TSN Director Scouting Craig Button and two TSN colleagues, Tessa Bonhomme and Cheryl Pounder, both members of Olympic gold medal winning Team Canada's. This is the 9th and final installment of the TSN All-Time Project. Today, we unveil the all-time women's Team Canada. Let's start in goal with Kim St. Pierre filling the #1 role ahead of Shannon Zabados and Charlene Labonte. Paired on defense, Hall of Famer Geraldine Heaney and Catherine Ward. Becky Keller and our own Cheryl Pounder comprise the shutdown pair. Leading the forwards is Hall of Fame trio Hayley Wickenheiser, Angela James, and Danielle Goyette. Marie-Philippe Poulin centers a second unit that includes another Hall of Famer, Jana Heffert. Also on the elite team are two-time golden goal scorer Nancy Drolet and the only two-time Olympic gold medal champion captain Cassie Campbell. All right, first thoughts go to Cheryl and Tessa. Cheryl, congrats on being named to the team.
Thank you.
What's your overall impression of this all-time roster?
Well, when you have a look at it, you sit there and you go, wow. I mean, this is a winning team. I mean, the accolades, the world championships, the Olympic gold medals, this team has the mindset and they know how to get it done. The depth is overwhelming. But perhaps when I look at it, I see the balance. I see the great skills of some of the greatest players who ever played the game, alongside some physical and intense and edgy players like Angela James, who I don't think anyone in the world ever wanted to face, including me.
In my opinion, I mean, it's hard to have a wrong answer building a team like this. However, I'm not sure who made this list. I do have a bone to pick with them. We'll get to that later. First, I'm going to give them a big high five because, Gino, the amount of money I would pay just to watch Catherine Ward and Geraldine Heaney play on defense, to me, that is the ultimate D pairing, a top defense pairing that I think would play at least 30 minutes a game just for the entertainment value.
Bouncing off of that pay money to watch, the Hall of Fame line with Goyette, Wickenheiser, and Angela James. I saw Angela James play in the first World Championships in 1990. It was spellbinding to watch the skill that she played with. And on the other side of that, the most recent Hall of Fame inductee, Hayley Wickenheiser, I've seen her from her first days with Team Canada all the way to her last days. And you think about going up against those two, that would be a nightmare matchup.
All right. Listen, we've had our say. Now it's time to hear from you. Go to tsn.ca and tell us who you think is the biggest omission from the Women's Team Canada all-time roster.
Coming up, LeBron, the football player, almost happened.
You're watching Jay and Dan at Home, brought to you by McDonald's, a new edition of the Draeger Cafe. Will drop Wednesday. This week's guest, Jets captain Blake Wheeler, who's concerned about any restart being fair.
If all can agree on a 2014 format, to get to that point where it's equal footing, how do you do it?
I think, what you need to be really, conscientious of in this situation is that, there are some teams that have had incredible regular seasons and you don't want to handicap them as well. You don't want to, I think the hard thing would be to have the bubble teams play a play-in and all of a sudden now, Boston or some of the teams that have been, St. Louis or Colorado have been at the top of the standings all year. They're sitting there cold and have to play a team that's already played a 3 to 5 game series and they're coming in hot. So whatever the numbers are going to be, try to make it so all the teams are playing before, when I say the games matter, I'm talking about, do or die situations.
Here we go, we're walking, which means we're kind of just staying in place because it's our at-home edition. Dan, I know you're a huge NASCAR fan, so I feel like this analogy will make sense to you. NASCAR and horse racing are so similar. First of all, things are racing. In one sport, it's horses, and the other, it's cars. But the other thing that makes them similar is that their big event, their signature event, kind of kicks off the calendar. So in NASCAR, of course, it's the Daytona 500. And traditionally in horse racing, it is the Kentucky Derby. But Dan, this year, that is about to change.
That's right, because the Kentucky Derby, it already got moved, it got moved to September? Yeah, to September 5th. So that means now, for the first time ever, the Belmont Stakes is going to serve as the first leg of horse racing's Triple Crown. It's going to be on June 20th, and it's going to happen without any fans. Traditionally, that Kentucky Derby leads off the Triple Crown, but due to the pandemic, the race has been moved to September 5th, as I mentioned. The third leg, the Preakness, will run on October 3rd. So horse racing is happening, so people who like to gamble will be a bit happier now.
Yeah, I'd say so, Dan. Do you count yourself among those people?
I used to go watch harness racing because it happened just outside my hometown of Peterborough growing up, and I like to bet on those, but I haven't bet on horses in a long time.
The ponies. Hey, Dan, I always wondered, when watching the Last Dance documentary, I wondered how LeBron reacted to that. And he made an interesting appearance on a podcast, an uninterrupted podcast on Monday. And that may have shed some light into it because we know Michael Jordan played baseball halfway through his basketball career. Well, as it turns out, LeBron had the chance to play football. You know what I'm talking about? That's right. LeBron could have been a two-sport athlete like Michael Jordan. Almost happened in 2011. LeBron was an all-state wide receiver in high school. We know that. He said on the Uninterrupted podcast Monday that he had actually started to trained to be a football player during the 2011 NBA lockout. He even received a contract from Jerry Jones that he framed in his office. On Monday, the Cowboys took to Instagram to imagine what could have been.
I had no idea how long the lockout was going to be. And myself and my trainer, my man Sears, we really started to actually train to be a football player when it came to like October and November. We started to clock our times with the 40s. We started to add a little bit more in our bench presses and things of that nature. We started to add more sledding to our agenda with our workouts. And Mike kept talking about, it'd be great to go down to Irvine, Texas. It'd be great to go to Irvine, Texas. Mike is, he's from Texas. Die hard Cowboy fans. He's like, it'd be great to go down there to Dallas, and suit it up for the Cowboys. How great that'll be.
That would have been pretty cool actually to see LeBron play some football. Dan, the English Premier League, they say they're coming back. In fact, Tuesday they're going to return to practice facilities. Of course, safety precautions going to be taken. But over the weekend, something happened that sort of, it's one of those situations that everybody talks about with all these sports returning to play.
So the English Premier League, they've started testing. You mentioned they're opening facilities. That happened on Tuesday, so clubs started individual training sessions then. Players, they were tested over the weekend, and the league announced 6 positive coronavirus tests, and they performed 748. So the 6 positive tests came from clubs, 3 clubs in total, and those individuals are now going to be quarantined for 7 days.
Time now for Who Delivered, presented by Mick Delivery here on Jay and Dan at Home. 1984, this day, the Edmonton Oilers beat the New York Islanders for their franchise's first Stanley Cup. Wayne Gretzky was held without a point or without a goal in the 1983 Cup Finals against the Isles. Had a pair of first-period goals in the series-clinching win. Edmonton outscored the Isles 19-6 over the final 3 games of the series to clinch their first cup. 1984. The Oilers definitely delivered. I remember it to this day. I went into grade 4 class the next day, Dan, in Boyle, Alberta, and Mrs. Barker said, do you kids know what happened last night? And she said, the Oilers won the Stanley Cup. And that leads us to, you blew it. What did we mess up?
You sneezed off the top. I got moisturizer in my eyeball, almost blinding me. And then at one point, when I was talking about Cristiano Ronaldo, I said isolation instead of isolation. He was not isolating, he was isolating.
Well, I am a little concerned about your eye because you got some of that very expensive moisturizer that you use. I know you order it special. Is it something that you think might cause permanent eye damage? Old Patches O'Toole, we'll call you?
No, I think I just have to give her a good flush. Once that's done, back in business. Yeah.